Hi, everybody. I'm Erin Golden. As Bruce mentioned, I'm the Assistant Director of the Postdoc Office. And I'm really excited for this next piece of the event to welcome two faculty members who are going to share kind of the faculty perspective on postdoc training at Anschutz. So first we have Dr. Lori Sussel, who is a professor and the research director at our Barbara Davis Center for Diabetes. And then Dr. Sussel also is the Associate Vice Chancellor for Basic Science Research. And then we also have Dr. Jared Brown, who's a professor in the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, was the toxicology graduate program director, and also directs the T32 in the school. So Dr. Sussel and Dr. Brown, I'm just going to start out by having you introduce yourselves. So Dr. Sussel, if you want to go first.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. So as Erin said, I am a professor of pediatrics and cell and developmental biology, and I'm also the research director at the Barbara Davis Center. My research is very basic. I'm a PhD scientist, and we study islet biology, but how it relates to diabetes. And I think one of my goals or my roles on the campus is that I'm a very big advocate of basic science on a medical campus because I think it's really the fundamental research that we do here that elevates clinical research.
Great, thank you. Dr. Brown.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. A pleasure to be here to talk to everybody today. Yeah, my name is Jared Brown. I'm a professor in the School of Pharmacy on the Anschutz campus. I've been here for about 13 or 14 years now. I also do very basic research. I came in doing that initially in my career, doing mostly, animal or cell-based research. But one thing the Anschutz campus has given me the ability to do is actually do a lot more translational research now. So we do a lot of work with clinical populations. We do a lot of field work, actually internationally and locally as well. And it all kind of feeds back to a lot of our basic science questions that we had. So for me, it's been a great place to be for some of those reasons in our research.
Fantastic. I was hoping that each of you could highlight kind of some research projects that are going on in your lab and really the role or lab or your department or your school and the role that postdocs are playing in those research studies. So
I guess I'll start. So the Barbara Davis Center is really unique in that we're sort of a microcosm of the university in that we're in one building and we have the clinical research on the first floor, the clinical seeing patients on the first floor, clinical research on the second floor, and then we have 2 floors of basic science research. And so in our lab, we work on islet biology to try and figure out why the immune system targets the insulin-producing beta cells in type 1 diabetes. And but we also have 11 other faculty that are studying either the immunology of type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease, or we have a bioengineer. We have also physician scientists. So we're all here in one place. And I think for a postdoc coming in, what's really amazing is they can interact with both the basic science and the clinical scientists. And I've had many postdocs in my lab. They contribute it really depending on what their interests are. And I think just like Katie mentioned, she came in with a nutrition background and she's applying it to a different question. I think our postdocs come in, I study a lot of RNA biology. And so we have a postdoc that came in and with an expertise in studying RNA, and he's been able to link us up with the RNA biologists on campus and basically driving projects forward in my lab that are related to islet biology. So I think I could go on about all the contributions. I mean, we really value postdocs here because you bring in fresh ideas and fresh ways of thinking about something into our research programs and then elevate it and expand it.
So my lab, I'm a toxicologist by training, and in general, our goal in my lab is we're looking at the role of the environment in human health, basically. And so we have a lot of projects that are examining things like air pollutants, water pollutants, things like that contribute to human health and disease. And so I'll just highlight one particular project right now that we're working on is looking at chronic kidney disease. And this is like a non-traditional chronic kidney disease that's occurring around the world, and people are dying from this, typically in their 20s to 40-year-old individuals, where they should not be getting chronic kidney disease at that age. And so We are working internationally. We're working in Sri Lanka, working in Thailand, working in Guatemala and other countries in Central America as well, trying to figure out what the cause of the disease is. And so it's been fun because it's very basic stuff, looking at developing cell and animal models for the disease, but also doing translational research with clinical samples and doing field work and sample collection in the field and things like that as well. So I have currently right now just one postdoc in the lab, but we've had postdocs number over the years, like Lori's had it as well. They are involved in all aspects of the work, from coordinating the very basic science part of it to actually going and traveling. My postdoc and I went down to Nicaragua maybe about a year and a half or so ago to do some of the work that we do down there. And so they're involved in all those aspects of all the projects.
Um, Great, thank you. Jared, sorry, I thought of another question. So really, like, well, for both of you, I guess, you're really sitting at these intersections of clinical, translational, Jared, you're working with a lot of public health scientists as well. I guess both of you probably are.
Mhm.
How do you encourage postdocs to develop those skills in being able to, talk to many different types of researchers? And I guess I'll put that into my next question, which is also about mentoring philosophy and how you postdocs develop skills that they would need in their training.
You want to
Jared,
start, Lauren?
Jared, I'll let you go first.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, I'll say one of my, so to your second point, I'll start there first, Aaron. Kind of my mentoring style, one of my key things in mentoring is communication for sure. And so I spend a lot of time when I'm in the lab, a lot of days going into the lab, talking to postdocs, everybody in the lab, not just postdocs, but trainees, everybody else, and just involved in the kind of the day-to-day of what's going on across the lab, across the university, across the projects, all that kind of stuff. So I think starting out, just developing the communication skills, just in that very basic sense, helps a lot. But then also put them in those opportunities. And so, taking postdocs or other trainees along on these, international trips or to the right conferences or whatever it might be, and put them in those right situations and introduce them to the right people and those kind of things, and just getting them out there, I think helps a lot with establishing those skills and confidence in doing some of that stuff.
Great.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think communication really is key, but I also think, and I think one of the strengths of our campus is collaboration as well, because I think, you can't work in a vacuum, and there's a lot of, my lab has expertise in islet biology, but then we collaborate a lot with the lab that has expertise in bioengineering. And I think having our postdocs interact with each other, the trainees, we have a weekly seminar series that the trainees, the postdocs, and the students give talks at. I think, like Jared said, taking students and postdocs out to meetings so that they can meet people that are in the research community, but also start to network, because that's where you're going to go and be able to get a job in the future, is those networking and skills that you have. So I think, we're collaborative on campus, but I think most of us have this philosophy that you really, to be successful, have to go outside of campus to expose yourself and communicate with other scientists.
I would just add real quick too. I think in my experience, the trainees that have been most successful over the years are the ones that are proactive in reaching out for those kind of things as well, right? So, Lori's example, if you need to work with bioengineering or somebody else, the postdocs that come in and say, oh, I need to reach out to such and such, maybe you make an introduction to them, but they're the ones that kind of drive that conversation, are the ones that are really successful in my opinion and experience.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So I was looking through the questions that our audience submitted, and one of the things that came up is, what advice do you have for postdocs who are really looking for the right fit in their postdoctoral training? Finding the right PI or lab that aligns with both their research interests and their career goals. Kind of what's your advice there? Laura, you're smiling and nodding, so I'll let you go first.
That's a really good question, because unlike, in grad school, you don't get to do rotations and get the feel. But I think something Jared said earlier was communication is key. You can be in a great lab, but if you cannot communicate with your PI, it's just not going to be a successful postdoc. So you have to be able to communicate and feel like comfortable meeting with the PI as an equal, as a peer. The other thing you want to really look for is, basically projects that can get you publications, because no matter what you want to do in your career, if you want to go into industry, if you want to go into academia, you really need to get those publications. So you want to step into a situation where you're supported to do research and you're excited about that research, because if you're excited about that research, then you're going to be productive and you're going to have publications. I'll let Jared add to that.
I'd add maybe two things to that. One is looking for a lab where you might have some sort of freedom, right? So you don't want to just go into a lab where you're going to finish aim 3 on an R01 of somebody, but you do have, maybe that's where you start, but then you kind of, mold your own projects. So, in the end, particularly if you're going to academics, right, you want to develop your own area of research so you can take it forward with you, like Katie's doing with her K99, right? So you want to develop some area that you can actually move forward with. So having that freedom, I think, is a big one as well. The other one thing I would say too, and where I've seen things kind of fall apart in labs, is not just the relationship between the mentor and the trainee, but also the other lab members. So if you have an opportunity to visit the lab, meet with people and things like that, I would just make sure that that fit is also, reasonable, at least, at minimum. Because I have seen things fall apart because not because the mentor-mentee relation, but more because of other people in the labs, things like that.
Yeah, I think Jared's right. Like, I try and give, when people interview, an opportunity to go out to lunch with the lab without me, so you can get sort of a feel for the community and how the people in the lab interact. And I think what Jared said is exactly true. It's good to step into a project, but there should be a plan for you to actually start developing something that you can take as independent, especially if you want to go into an academic position.
Yeah, great. Katie, I wanted to see if you had anything additional that you wanted to jump in, not to put you on the spot there, but.
Well, I was gonna say all three of those like big things that both Lori and Jared mentioned. So, but just to reiterate, I think that the lab culture part is really important, because although you do interact with your mentor a lot, I mean, you're maybe interacting with your lab members even more. And so making sure that you have good communication with your lab members, and and with the mentor, the communication style I think is key, because I have encountered postdocs who have been with mentors who they don't see eye to eye, or they don't have the same sort of communication style, and although they both have good intentions, they just kind of butt heads a little bit. So those are key things to think about.
That's great. And what about timeline? That was another question that we got a lot about, was timeline. How far ahead of time should people be looking for their postdoc positions?
I think the sooner the better, honestly, because if you're right now, labs have to plan in advance because of the funding issue. So, even a year out is not too soon. If you're starting to think about what you want to do and where you want to live and what sort of area you're going to do research, I mean, it's never too early to reach out to a PI and say, okay, this is what my interests are, and start a communication way ahead of time. That way I can, like, for me, I can plan ahead. So if I maybe have funding for 2 people, and I know I'm going to get a postdoc, I might not take a graduate student. So I think it can't be too soon. It's nice to have a publication out so they can see you're productive, but that's not always necessary.
Yeah, I'd agree with that wholeheartedly as well. The only thing I would add to it is that just in my experience, I have never really advertised for a postdoc. It's always been people that have either reached out to me or I've met at conferences, things like that over the years, or know through other colleagues. And so they say that, let me know ahead of time, like maybe a year ahead of time, that they're going to be graduating and defending, and just kind of start that conversation, like Lori said, and it kind of grows from there for the most part.
Great.
Yeah,
Katie,
can I add to that? Because I think there's a misconception out there. Don't just look for advertisements.
Yeah.
Most of us do not advertise. It's if you're interested in a lab, talk to the PI, reach out. Don't wait for an advertisement, because I think it's really not how it often works.
Yeah, that tees us up nicely for the last part of the presentation before we go into the Q&A. Bruce will share some of the ways you can connect with faculty on campus, but I think that's a really good point, is largely positions available are not always transparent. So yeah. So what other ways do you encourage postdocs to build skills, and what other skills do you encourage them to build? So you talked a bit about communication. What else?
Communication is really key. I mean, you want to do your research, but you need to be able to go to meetings and go and put yourself out there. Have a poster, talk to labs that you're interested in. I think as scientists, sometimes it's hard for us to do that, but I think it's really important that communication piece is really important, and being able to network. So it's not just doing your research, but being able to communicate it and talk to people about your research and put yourself out there.
Yeah, and part of the communication is also writing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think getting a lot of experience writing. And so the more you can do that in a lab, the better. I mean, whether you go to academics or not, you're always going to be doing some sort of writing in your career as a PhD. And it's going to be a critical part of your career path, I think. A couple other things that I encourage my postdocs to do in the lab is, one, teach a little bit, particularly ones that want academic or more academically inclined. So I have a couple of graduate courses that I run, and so I'll just slot them in for a class here and there. So it's not like an overwhelming thing, but just gets them the experience to be able to do that kind of thing, right? So they prep a lecture, they give a lecture, that kind of stuff. The other thing I encourage them to do is also take leadership roles. So like either regional or national societies, there's always postdoc representatives for a lot of these societies. And so taking some of those roles, or on campus in the postdoc association, things like that, I think really help build those communication skills, organization skills, all that kind of stuff. And so it's helpful to see how those things are run and helps them with their career.
Fantastic. Katie, do you have anything you want to add in as well?
I guess just along with the leadership, the also mentoring that I mentioned in my presentation, it is not only because it's a good skill to have, but I've found it to be quite rewarding and kind of to pay it forward. And then also kind of reiterating to myself why I chose this pathway. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll follow up with both what Katie said about mentoring and what Jared said about teaching. So one of the things you'll notice about our campus is that we don't have undergrads because we're the medical campus, but there are opportunities there to teach. So either through graduate programs that maybe your PI is involved with, or there is the CU Denver campus, and the Career Development Office now has a Learning to Teach workshop and is helping postdocs who want to learn to teach connect with those teaching opportunities. But one of my favorite things on campus are really our summer programs. So Jared runs an undergrad program, and we have both year-round and summer programs where undergrads come to campus. And I think that is a great opportunity to get those mentoring experiences. Yeah. So I would love to know kind of what you all are most excited about with CU Anschutz kind of going forward. Like what do you see coming in the future of our campus?
Are you talking to us?
Yes, to
Oh.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It was a quick pivot.
It's really a vibrant place. I think it's growing. We're on the national stage. I think the intersection of basic research and clinic is unique here. And I think, like you mentioned at the very beginning, we're not a huge campus, and so there's really a lot of interaction. We're seeing more and more funding coming in from different places in philanthropy to build different programs. And so it's really just a great community to do research in.
I guess I would add, I'm excited about some of the larger programs we see being developed across the campus. So Bruce highlighted some of those in the very beginning with those, big $20 to $50 million type proposals, stuff like that. We're seeing more and more of that, which I think lends to all of our interest in team science type work across the campus. And so, we all work across different disciplines. And so I think having these larger grant opportunities, and the campus is really invested in trying to facilitate those as well. I mean, we're working with the campus right now to submit a large center grant as well. And, they're providing the resources to coordinate all this kind of stuff. And so I just see it's almost like it's snowballing effect right now as far as the campus growing and larger programs and more recognition and stuff like that. So it's a great place to be.
Awesome. And Katie, what about you?
Well, I guess I mean, I haven't been here that long to know what it's been like in the past, but I was just thinking about how I just love the atmosphere here and how much different research I can be exposed to. There are seminar series, every day I can go to a talk about dopamine, and then I can go to one about parental contribution to health outcomes in the offspring. It's just so diverse. And I think it will continue to be that way going into the future, and that makes me excited about science.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, we are coming to the end of our panel, but Lori and Jared, or Dr. Sussel and Dr. Brown, I wanted to see if there was anything else you wanted to add before we open up to Q&A.
I think like we've all said, it's a great place to work. I've been at a couple of different institutes for my career, and I've come back to Colorado. It's not only a great place to live, but it's a great place to work, and it's an exciting place to do research. And I think there's more support here for postdoc fellows than anywhere I've ever been. I mean, we really take your career seriously, and I think as you see from Bruce and Aaron, there's so much support on campus that you don't get lost. I think sometimes campuses focus on the grad students or the undergrads or the medical students. And here, I think there's a real big focus on the postdoctoral community.
Thanks.
I would just say that, as far as my personal experience, I've always find I develop, even with all my trainees, but postdocs in particular, a lifelong relationship with them. And the same for me. I still got a relationship with my postdoc mentor as well, and still, talk to him regularly and that kind of stuff, and still go to him for advice. And so when you're looking for a position, I would add, it's important to find that right relationship, and it can really advance your career, even beyond just getting that next position after a postdoc, but it'll continue on for your lifetime.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. So we are going to open up for Q&A in a minute, but before that, I'm actually going to hand it back to Bruce to tell you about how you can find positions on campus. So Bruce, back to you.